In this devotional, I'm going to share with you three thoughts from Isaiah 34, verses 1 through 12, where I'll ask the question, why will God judge creation? Isaiah 34, verses 1 through 12 says, "Draw near, O nations, to hear, and give attention, O peoples. Let the earth hear, and all that fills it, the world and all that comes from it. For the Lord is enraged against all the nations, and furious against all their host. He has devoted them to destruction. He has given them over for slaughter. Their slain shall be cast out, and the stench of their corpses shall rise. The mountains shall flow with their blood. All the hosts of heaven shall rot away, and the skies roll up like a scroll. All their hosts shall fall, as leaves fall from the vine, like leaves falling from the fig tree. For my sword has drunk its fill in the heavens. Behold, it descends for judgment upon Edom, upon the people I have devoted to destruction. The Lord has a sword. It is sated with blood. It is gorged with fat, with the blood of lambs and goats, with the fat of the kidneys of rams. For the Lord has a sacrifice in Basra, a great slaughter in the land of Edom. Wild oxen shall fall with them, and young steers with the mighty bulls. Their land shall drink its fill of blood, and their soil shall be gorged with fat. For the Lord has a day of vengeance, a year of recompense for the cause of Zion. And the streams of Eden shall be turned into pitch, and her soil into sulfur. Her land shall become burning pitch. Night and day it shall not be quenched. Its smoke shall go up forever. From generation to generation it shall lie waste. None shall pass through it forever and ever. But the hawk and the porcupine shall possess it. The owl and the raven shall dwell in it. He shall stretch the line of confusion over it, and the plumb line of emptiness. Its nobles, there is no one there to call it a kingdom, and all its princes shall be nothing." These are the words of Isaiah, and they're not exactly encouraging. In fact, they're quite bleak. They're quite upsetting. And the reason why they're so upsetting is because he's discussing a vast judgment of God, not just upon the nations, but upon the whole of creation. And God is going to judge all of creation. He is going to judge it all and find it wanting. And this is something that's absolutely devastating for anyone who hears it. Whether you heard it from Isaiah himself or you're hearing it now, this knowledge of the judgment of God is something that causes us to pause and consider our relationship to him. With that in mind, here are three thoughts from Isaiah 34, verses 1 through 12, answering the question, why will God judge creation? Thought number one, enraged. The Lord is enraged. And the reason why the Lord is enraged is because creation has not honored him rightly as God. Now, this is primarily done by people. People primarily are the ones who have failed to honor God in the way that he should be honored. But our corruption here in the world has corrupted all of creation. And this is something that we need to note, that the curse that is pronounced upon Adam and Eve doesn't just affect them, but it affects the whole of the created universe. And the Lord is enraged at mankind and creation's unwillingness to acknowledge him and glorify him as the almighty creator of the universe. Thought number two, heaven and earth. Just in case you're wondering if God's judgment is just for the here and now, the created things that you see all around, well, it isn't. In fact, God's judgment is in heaven too. And Isaiah talks about this. He talks about how God is judging those who have rebelled against him, even in the high places, even in the heavenly places, even in those divine realms. The Lord is enraged, and he is bringing forth his judgment upon created things that dwell there as well. It isn't just the physical world that is going to experience the judgment of God, but it is the spiritual world too. So here we see this picture of the third of the angels being swept from the sky. Here is where we see that imagery that's so common in Revelation of God waging war against spiritual forces with which we are unfamiliar. Well, those are the heavenly things that God is raging against, and he will also rage against the earthly things as well. With all of that, we're more familiar. We've seen the creation. We've seen nations rise and fall. And what Isaiah talks about is God bringing forth his judgment upon those nations and upon those peoples. And it isn't going to be isolated to any one group, but all of creation will experience his judgment. Thought number 3, the cause of Zion. Isaiah puts a little bit of hope in here, and that little bit of hope is the cause of Zion. That little bit of hope is this idea that the Lord's covenant people, they will be able to escape this grand judgment that's going to take place. It's the covenant children of God that will survive, that the Lord will keep as a remnant, that he will set apart for himself and will be the ones who represent Zion, the city on the hill, those who God has chosen for himself. They will be the ones who experience the mercy and the grace of God in such a way that he is glorified above all other names. These 3 thoughts come from the assigned reading of Isaiah chapters 34 through 39. If you'd like to read through the Bible with me, you can do so by subscribing to this channel, by clicking on the link in the description, or by joining the Facebook group Through the Bible, where we are reading the text of Scripture together.